A lot of videos is Shakiba Rafiee, and she's from Maryland.
So my name is Shakiba. I'm from the University of Maryland, working with Dr. Ross Miller and Dr. Tim Kimmel. And today I want to talk about neural control of walking and the fact that we think it goes beyond simple reactive strategies. Okay, so before I get to define what I mean by reactive strategies, just a little background. So our lab has developed a method to completely characterize the response of human walking to small perturbations. And I've used this method in an experimental setup previously, continuously perturbing people as they walk through that apparatus, and then collecting kinematic data, muscle activation, and calculating phase-dependent impulse response functions that describe the response of a system to small, short perturbations. And what we found was that nervous system generally uses two classes of strategies, reactive strategies and compensatory strategies. And they, to an extent, depend on the position of the foot on the ground. I'm going to get to that. But so reactive strategies generally oppose the effect of perturbation, and they take advantage of reflex mechanism. For instance, when you perturb the foot forward, your during early swing, sorry. Yeah. So when you you push the foot forward during early stance, the hamstring muscles at later stance get activated to help bring the foot back. And this happens after a fixed delay because it takes advantage of reflex mechanisms. On the other hand, if these reactive strategies cannot compensate for the fact that the foot is further away from the center of mass completely, they try to come up with some other way, maybe bringing the center of mass forward. And a good example of this is activation of the tibialis anterior at early stance, which would tries to propel the whole body forward. And one thing that you should notice is that the delay here is not fixed anymore. The delay varies. What is fixed is, to an extent, the response time. So what I wanted to do here was compare a model of human locomotion that uses only reactive strategies, Gara and her 2010 paper, and then compare it to experimental data to see how successful it is in mimicking our data. So I simulated mechanical perturbation, applied force impulses at 100 phases, and then made sure that they mimic experimental data. And so this is what we found. We found that the kinematic results are very similar across model and human, and this is basically the genius of this model. You can see, so on these figures, on horizontal axis, you have the perturbation phase when the leg was pushed forward. On vertical axis, you have the response time. And if you're not familiar with these graphs, don't worry, just notice how similar they are to each other. So the first graph shows the ankle response in AP position. And you can see for both model and human, after the onset of perturbation, they basically instantaneously, this value increases, which means that the leg has moved forward. And both model and human experienced phase delay. However, the muscular responses were only similar for reactive strategies. And this is the hamstring muscle response. You can see that for perturbation applied during mid-swing, both model and human show an increase in the response after some delay. But the model cannot replicate for a more complicated compensatory strategies. So tibialis anterior is something in the middle because the direction of the response is similar, but the timing is off. Here, for perturbation applied during early swing, you can see that the humans wait and then respond at heel strike, basically, an early stance. The model response comes after a short latency and is basically reactive. The only other muscular responses that we could find, well, substantial muscular responses that we could find But for rectus femoris, it didn't mimic, but their model doesn't really have rectus femoris, so they have just a lump of hip flexor, so don't worry about that part. Your takeaway should be that control of human walking goes beyond simple reactive strategies, and maybe we take advantage of some sort of clock that regulates walking.
Question back here.
Can you go back to the IRF plot?
Sure.
Oops, sorry.
Which one?
This one. So this looks like a non-causal IRF. So you have values before time equals 0.
No.
But there must be. So what does normalized time mean, and how are there values before time?
No. So
0?
this is actually this is the black line there, or just here, is the values before the perturbation, and it's 0. And the color coding here, green, is 0. So
maybe
this is
maybe an easier question would be, what's normalized time?
Oh, so it's that, well, it is phase, it is time, but we made sure that one cycle afterward, normalize it to the frequency of their gait.
What is 0?
It's still a strike.
Okay.
Sorry, thanks, yeah.
Okay, we're gonna take one more question, but while we do that, can all the 10 videos that we're gonna have make your way down to the stage, and we'll get the computer switched over. Okay, we have a question here.
So you didn't give us the full information about the experiment, because at the same time that you're applying the mechanical perturbation, you're also applying visual perturbation. And a lot of people were confused about this last year at ASP, that unless you show that the visual perturbation that is going on at the same time did not have an effect on the mechanical response, then you cannot, that's not a given fact. If you're familiar with the work of Bob Peterka, he talks a lot about sensory reweighting and the fact that you need to make sure that other sensory modalities are not going to affect your response. So I'm not sure why you're mixing mechanical perturbation and visual perturbation at the same time.
So the method that I'm using assumes that the system is linear. And so the effect of the visual perturbation on mechanical perturbation, we assume that it's small enough, and that should take care of that. Well, it's an assumption, but it's also, if that goes away, basically everything else also goes away. The fact that the mechanical perturbations can add up, that would also go away if the system is not linear. Again, because if the method is wrong, then even for mechanical perturbation, you shouldn't be able to see the same thing. Because the system is not linear, then it should not add up. I can discuss with you later. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.